Hello, everyone. It's Cassandra Williamson, and let me pull up the back of my other screen. There we go. Hope everyone's having a good Monday. I know that you just came off of a weekend, it's Mother's Day weekend. I hope you had an opportunity to spend time with your mom or your significant other, the mother of your children, or whomever, that you had a chance to do that and honor and respect your mom. I know that that's a hugely important thing to do because my mom is 86 years old, and Oma Williamson, and she is going through some rough stuff. She has stage 4 kidney uh, cancer, or not cancer, but disease, and her filtration rate is around 17.2 or 17 or so. So 15 is when they start talking about dialysis, and that's one of the hardest things, especially an older person going through dialysis. Um, we know that that's coming eventually, but we don't know exactly when yet. The trends are pretty flat over the past 4 years. What the surprising part is, I had doctors here in this area, in the Kentucky area, who have known this was coming for a long time and did nothing except said, hey, just drink water. You'll be all right. Just drink some water. You'll be fine. So anyway, we're moving forward at this point in time. We're trying to figure out, me and my siblings, we're trying to figure out next steps and things like that, and keep mom engaged with everything, because this stage of kidney disease does have some ramifications that have to do with, swelling of extremities. We've seen some of that. We've seen some loss of cognitive clarity, things like, some confusion or cloudiness occurring. Very much engaged otherwise, but then loses track of it sometimes. But so that's what's going on, is I'm having to deal with that here in Pike County, Kentucky, Hatfield McCoy feud country. So my mom, that's obviously, I'll be 66 here real soon, so I'm the oldest of six. And they asked me to come back and help take care of them and my brother and sister. News on my brother's front, though, he's definitely improving quite a bit. He looks better. He's out doing some things that he loves to do, which is working on old cars and stuff like that. That's what he does. He just likes being out in the shop, getting his hands dirty, which it's like being in the kitchen and just throwing flour in your face, I guess. I like being in the kitchen. I don't like working on cars. Never have. Not ever. I can if I need to, but that's not the top priority for me. I know where you put the gas in, the oil in, and the computer in the car tells me whether or not the oil is low and tires need air. Stuff like that. But I can do it if I have to, Yes, I can. So anyway, yeah, and my sister, Irma, she's doing fine. The same. She's actually not sickly or sick or anything like that. She just can't get around. She has no mobility other than in a wheelchair, and cannot enunciate words clearly. She knows what she wants to say, but can't say them. There's a disconnect between what she's thinking in her brain and what comes out. So I'm not quite sure what that connection is, but something in there is breaking that connection. So that she can't communicate clearly, even though I know that she can, has the words and the knowledge and whatever to say things, some things mostly. But what's in her brain has a hard time getting out, whether it's writing or speaking. And I have to do a lot of interpretive listening. This morning, I asked her what she wanted for breakfast, and she goes, Cheerios, something like that. And I knew what she meant. It didn't come out quite as clearly as I just said it, but you get a sense of what she means, and then you can just go from there. And that's the way it's been all of her life. She's soon to be 56. She's 10 years younger than me. So yeah, that's what's happening in the holler in Eastern Kentucky. And as I said, it's top of the hour. I hope you did get to spend some time with your mom. That's hugely important. Whether it's a chosen mom or your actual biological mom or your adoptive mom, whichever one, show your respect for your mom and be there for her when she needs you. And not only that, listen to her. She's got a few years on you. Yeah, she does. So that's where we are right now, up here in the holler of Eastern Kentucky. So over the weekend, there's been a lot of different things that have taken place in the news cycle, which is always the case around here under the Trump administration. The one thing that I will say this, and I've said this many times before, not just under this administration, I've said this in prior and previous administrations and said it for years and years and years. Countries around the world have come to understand that the U.S. is not a reliable partner between one administration and the next. And so they've adapted to that. They know that. They've seen how that works out, because political wins will move our country's sense of what we owe to the world or what the world owes to us from one administration to the next. It never stays the same, and it's always dependent upon the election cycle, apparently, and whatever's spread out there in the media. So, even for every war we've been in, there's always been that, where the population will decide that, hey, we don't want to do anything else over there. I mean, we need to pull ourselves out of it, even though we got it started to start out with. I mean, it's just a fickle bunch. It's a hard thing to deal with here in the U.S. Because I know, I wish this were not the case, but I don't know any way around it. And to preserve our constitutional republic in the process, because that's ultimately what we have to do, is be able to preserve, the constitutional republic. Now, I'm not one of those to say that this thing was etched in stone and it can't be changed. That is not the case. That is not the case at all. Thomas Jefferson didn't even believe that. He wrote, I think it was July the 12th, 1816, in a letter to Samuel Kercheval. And this was in 1816. What, just 40 years after the Constitution was written? Yeah, 86, 96. Yeah, 40 years after the Constitution had been ratified. And, well, about 40 years. It took a little bit of time for some of the other states to get there after Delaware signed it first. So 40 years, let's just use 40 as an example. 40 years after that, Thomas Jefferson was telling people, or told Samuel Kercheval, his friend, in this letter, first thing he said, don't tell anybody about this, because I don't want them to know that this is the way I actually think about it. But he said, yes, we can very cautiously change the Constitution as we need and by amendment processes. Yes, you can do that. And it has to be done thoughtfully and cautiously. This is me paraphrasing it, what he wrote in that letter. And he said, who am I to force, or who, let me see if I can get this come out the right way. He said, who would force me to wear the coat of my youth now that I am grown up, basically. This is me paraphrasing what he said. Who would force me in their right mind, basically? Who in their right mind would force me to wear the coat of my youth, and I am now grown up? I'm an adult. Can't wear it anymore. And he said the founding fathers that he knew, the people that he knew in his life, they never intended it to be that way either. They wouldn't force anyone to, wear the coat of their youth, because times and things change. So the Constitution has to be adaptive and, considerate of those things and respectful of that. And let me get a screen up here that kind of cuts that background out of the way. So that was a letter to Samuel Kercheval. And he was talking about refreshing the Constitution every 20 or 30 years or so. Every generation, because he said every generation basically, and this, like I said, it's me paraphrasing it, every generation basically has the right to make this work the way they need it to work for them in their environment, with the knowledge that they've gained and the new understanding that they have. That was Thomas Jefferson. He is one of those people that the right conservative thinkers tend to go to. And I happen to agree with Thomas Jefferson on that point. He had some other ideas that he had to change and adapt along the way. Back in the 1792, he decided that he was on the cabinet for George Washington, 1792, somewhere around there. And he was strongly opposed to bringing European-style manufacturing to the United States. Strongly opposed to it. Alexander Hamilton, on the other hand, promoted it and said, we need to do this. We need to do this to increase the strength and foundation base of our country to bring European style manufacturing to the United States. Jefferson was opposed. Hamilton wanted it. Washington told them both to shut up. They were acting like kids in the local newspapers that they each controlled somewhat. Jefferson would go after Hamilton. Hamilton would go after Jefferson. They went after each other like crazy. And Washington had to calm them down. You got to stop. You're going to create division in the country. We don't need that. We don't need what you're creating. Basically, he was saying what you're creating are two different factions, a party system, two parties. And Washington was opposed to that. He knew that people would have different opinions and different views. But, the thing is with Jefferson, though, after he became president, he finally realized Hamilton was right. But by then, Hamilton had been killed by Aaron Burr, right? And so Jefferson grew up. He came to understand the importance of these things and then made that massive Louisiana Purchase. Expanding the territory. So people do change over time. The leadership changes over time. Things change. But what I was talking about more specifically was preserving our constitutional republic in this environment, because around the world, people see us as nations, I should say, see us as less than trustworthy between administrations. From one administration to the next, you can't rely on the United States because political winds in the country, which are driven by that concept of, a constitutional republic, people voting for things and thinking through things, which only a small percentage of Americans do any of that. But that small percentage is the one who is actually getting a say in things. And that's what we're seeing in the Trump administration, is a part of the country decided that this is what they wanted and this is what they're getting. And the rest of us who don't necessarily agree with everything that Trump's doing. Now, let me just clarify that just a fraction. There are a lot of things I do agree with Trump on. Surprisingly, you may think that's surprising. It's not to me because of my heritage or history, I guess. But I do happen to like the idea of leveling the playing field with the tariffs and the accomplishment that he's made with China. I hope that bears fruit and actually works to the advantage of both countries. I don't think we ought to be just chopping down everything in the world and trying to bring them all to our level or whatever, or destroy them just so we can succeed. No, that's not the point. We live on a small blue dot, and U.S. only represents 4.5% of the total global population. So who are we, right? Anyway, but I do agree with the idea of these tariffs and leveling that playing field, because that just makes sense. Why would we stand back and allow another country to impose tariffs on our stuff into their country, protecting their stuff and not allowing some of our products into their country? But yet they want us to buy all their stuff at reduced cost. So, I'm fully in support of that, actually. I'm also in support of, and I'll tell you this too, now let me just clarify this one too. Our immigration policies in this country are horrible, but they aren't horrible because of Trump. They aren't horrible because of Biden. They aren't horrible because of Obama or Bush or Clinton or anybody like that. They aren't horrible for that. They aren't even horrible. They weren't. I mean, we've been dealing with immigration issues since the 1890s, 1880s, and 1890s, folks. This is nothing new. This is nothing new. We've had chances and opportunities, and people all get riled up. But, there was the Chinaman problem back in the 1890s, right? Remember that? We brought them over here to build the railroads, but then after we got a lot of that done, we didn't want them here anymore, and we sent them back. And then they kept coming back through either the northern border or the southern border. And this was in the 1890s and early 1900s. But we didn't want them buying up stuff either. And do we see anything like that today in the news? Texas and Florida is all wanting to stop immigrants, stop non-citizens from owning land in the country. Well, that'd be like Ukraine telling us that since we're a non-citizen of Ukraine, we have no business acquiring any of their property there, or minerals or resources or whatever, right? Right. See, that's part of the difficulty, is that we have a tendency to be hypocritical. We think that certain things should apply to us and only us and nobody else. Go outside of our border, well, we can do whatever the hell we want. We don't have to use those same rules elsewhere. And that brings back the question of the immigrants. Immigrants, we have a right, we have a responsibility to the well-being of every person, actually. And it's not it's just a moral responsibility. You don't want somebody to come in here, and you don't want somebody to come in and go, I have nothing, give me everything. You don't want that either. A lot of that does happen. But our immigration system needs to be corrected. And so I really have no objections with fixing the immigration system and making the border, now I'm going to put an S on the borders, more secure. I'm talking about the northern one and the southern one. And so both borders, we need to be more secure. There are other options to get around some of that, and I'll talk about that at another point. But you need to make those borders secure. You need to stop people coming in here illegally, because guess what? You came in illegally. We shouldn't let you starve to death when you come here illegally, but at the same time, you're here illegally. And you should go back to the country from whence you came. Go back, do the right thing, come back in. If you want to come here, do it right. Do it the right way, and get rid of that label of illegal off of the immigrant part for your life. Yeah, do that. And then things will work out a whole heck of a lot better, except we've got some people in power who are just determined to go after anyone who doesn't look like, sound like, think like, believe like, or love like them. And that's what we have in this current administration. We have a lot of that in this current administration. And just ask yourself this question. We're kicking out people from Africa. We're kicking out people from Asia. We're kicking out people from South and Central America. And we've decided that all the African refugees, the white Africans from South Africa, they're refugees or try to get away from their country, we're letting them come in. That's under Trump. So you can't tell me there's not a racist element to this thing. Stephen Miller has always had it that way. That's always been his way. With Numbers USA and all this kind of stuff, that's what he's been doing, and he will never admit that, and he'll try to cover it up. This is what we're seeing. He'll try to cover it up every time to make it look less like that. So you'll find an occasional German who gets rounded up and held in ICE detention. You'll find Italians, English, or whomever, somebody gets rounded up and held in ICE detention for weeks so that they can go. But look, we're not doing it that way. We actually are going after everybody, when in effect, the effect is ship them to the south of the border but bring in the Afrikaners over there from South Africa and bring them into the country. They are, after all, white. Yeah, they are. Makes this a bad look, folks. It's a bad look, really is. It's bad. And then, people just don't trust America to be able to live up to its obligations after an administration goes away and a new one comes in. Any country in the world who relies on the U.S. for anything, or thinks they have a new treaty with anybody, with the United States, well, they should realize that that's only good as long as the administration who wrote it is in power, because the next one can come right along and go, well, we don't want to do that. We don't want to do that one either. We think that one was wrong. We see a lot of that, right? We see that, but that's something that has been going on with every administration. We saw it with Nixon. We saw it with Ford, Reagan, Bush, Kennedy, all of them. They all do this. If they don't like a particular treaty or whatever, they will make sure that it gets challenged, nullified, wiped out. But right now, the biggest push is coming right straight out of Project 2025, the Heritage Foundation's Project 2025. And all you have to do, everything that's been going on in the present administration, where they're going out and cleaning house and getting rid of people they don't like, like the Librarian of Congress, and the head of the Copyright Office, because they were friends. Getting rid of these people, but you know what the look is? That you're going after women who threaten you. But here's the thing. You start thinking about the way these people are acting and behaving and where they're getting their ideas from. You've got to go back to their ideologies to find the root of it all. You've got to go dig into a lot of this stuff. And then you'll begin to understand that there is a foundational belief system that does not think women ought to be in power in anything, especially if they're going to be in power over men. That's the belief system. It's very, very fundamentalist, and it can be Christian or Muslim or whatever, Jewish, any of them. And whichever way you want to go with it, if a woman is in command or in charge of something, well, then the men are being emasculated. Oh, no. And lo and behold, a trans woman get in here and do anything, right? I mean, oh my gosh, that's an even bigger affront. And even though all the trans women that they're going after in the United States right now, in the military, they're highly qualified. They've received tremendously exceptional reviews, personnel reviews. I mean, they have been doing well in all of these fields: fighter pilot, space scientists, military police, dentist. They're exceptional people. They've been tried and tested for years in these areas, and they've been doing it well with no problem. But the challenge, the difficulty that group of Americans have right there is that some men aren't secure in their masculinity. So they're threatened by transgender women. They're threatened by them simply because, all they can see is that person used to be a man. And they're showing me that the masculinity that I think I have that is so rock solid, which is not. The masculinity that I have is so rock solid is actually not. It's actually fluid and plastic. Well, that just threatens their livelihoods, their lives, their whole thinking of what it means. So That's really what it boils down to. That's the same thing with the sports issue. Transgender people, transgender women in sports. Now, look, if you have been following any of the emails that I send out, I put out articles about this. There's a deep, in-depth research, actually, that I put together, and I've studied it and looked at it, pulled it together. I use a lot of AI resources, too, just so you know, on all of my research stuff, because it just makes it a hell of a lot easier to do. So you go through and you can read up on a lot of this stuff. The problem with all of these transgender sports bills, by the way, or transgender women in sports primarily is what it's about, is that they're not nuanced. For instance, can somebody tell me why transgender women should not be in playing in competitive chess? Why is chess even differentiated between male and female? Why? Anybody got a clue? Why is there a men's division and a women's division in chess? Shouldn't be. Should not be. Why is there a men's and women's division in throwing darts or playing pool? Why? It should just be one, right? That doesn't require any kind of physical strength or stamina, does it? So can anyone tell me why that's the case? Well, I'll tell you why. Tradition. Tradition was the culprit. Heritage was the culprit. We always do that. We always separate by men and women and black and white and pink and purple. We always separate like that, right? I mean, that's the way it's, God created us men and women, right? Not so much. But anyway, yeah, so why in billiards? Why in throwing darts? Why in chess? But yet, I do understand it. I do understand it in powerlifting. The snatch and grab, you have to go stuff. That takes a different set of things altogether. Track takes a different set of things altogether. So if you'll read the report that I wrote and published this morning, it's in that email I sent out. You can go over to the website and get it if you'd like. Let me see if I can pull it up for you over here. Right there. You can go to that website, going across the bottom of your screen. Go into the blogs and find the one that has to do with women, transgender women in sports. Read that one. And while you're at it, you can also read about Albert Cashier. Albert Cashier was a Union Army soldier from Illinois. He fought in several battles, including Vicksburg, and was captured and escaped. Everyone who knew him spoke highly of him. They knew of his valor, they knew of his courage, and they knew of his honor. And Albert Cashier served in, like I said, it was the 95th Illinois, I believe. You can read up on that over on my blog post as well, and then read the deeper article if you subscribe. But there's Albert Cashier is just an amazing person. Before the war, Albert Cashier was identifying as a man, but he was born a woman. I think it was Ireland or Scotland, somewhere like that. But came here and lived life as a man and went into the military, collected the pension, did it all. And the only way anyone found out was he broke a leg one day when he was older, about 66 or so, I think, older, and broke a leg that created a problem the doctor had to fix. And the doctor discovered that he was not physically a man. But you know what the doctor did? You know what the doctor did then with Albert Cashier? kept the secret, kept it, didn't tell anybody, but it got out anyway somewhere along the line after they went into a veterans home and stuff like that, and then on into an insane asylum later because of the ways that he was treated and everything. And then when Albert died, he was given full military honors. He had his pension all the way through, even though the government tried to take it away and couldn't find a reason to do it because so many people supported Albert. Albert lived as a man all of his adult life. Came to the U.S. as a stowaway. So you can read up on Albert. It's a fascinating story if you don't know anything about it. You can also take a chance when you're looking down through all those links and things to check out one of the blogs that I've got on Casimir Pulaski. Know who that is? General Pulaski, Polish general, aristocracy, came over here, helped Washington get all the troops organized and helped him succeed in some battles, and he's basically considered the father of the U.S. cavalry. It's why you see his name everywhere around this country. There are counties and cities and roads and things called that all over the place, called Pulaski County Road, Street, whatever. But during an exhumation, it was discovered that he had the pelvic structure and facial structure of a woman. And some people suggested that, no, that couldn't have been right. That's probably the wrong body in there. Well, no, they couldn't determine it at first, but as the science advanced, they were able to prove through a great niece or grandniece that that was indeed General Pulaski. And so he, like I said, he had the pelvic structure and the facial structures of a woman in every way. He was raised a man. He was baptized as a male, but we don't know anything else beyond that. But read the report. I did a really deep dive into it with the assistance of my subscribed AI system. But anyway, I've talked a lot and really haven't said a whole heck of a lot, but I just wanted to say thank you for watching and listening and participating in what I do. Subscribe to the channel, subscribe to wherever it is, wherever you're watching me from. Reach out to the website and you can check out some things. The research section, though, is a paid section. You have to get there through a paywall. It's not much. It's like $3.99 a month or something or other. But I generally do a lot of different things and digging up stuff. You can go through there and you know, maybe I can learn something from you when you have time to read it and comment. With that, I'll see you this evening at 6 p.m. Eastern. Have a great afternoon, everyone.